Good morning and welcome to Daily Briefing. I'm Alex.
And I'm Sarah. July 11th, 2026.
Today we are tracking a major last-minute immigration decision from Washington, a massive escalation in the Middle East with a strict deadline for Iran, and a historic $26 billion tech listing in New York. Plus, it is a beautiful, clear 59 degrees here in Parker, Colorado, heading up to a high of 92.
That is quite a lineup to jump into. Let's get right to it.
All right, turning to U.S. news. Just hours before the clock ran out, the federal government stepped in to extend work permissions for immigrants under Temporary Protected Status, or TPS. This 11th-hour decision prevents immediate job losses and deportation risks for thousands of vulnerable foreign workers who were facing an incredibly stressful deadline.
This was incredibly down to the wire, Alex. We're talking about people who are deeply integrated into our communities, working in healthcare, construction, and service industries. If this had expired, the economic disruption would have been felt almost instantly by employers who rely on this workforce.
Exactly, and the Department of Homeland Security was under immense pressure from business coalitions and civil rights groups. Under TPS, the government grants temporary relief from deportation and work authorization to foreign nationals from countries experiencing ongoing armed conflict, environmental disasters, or other extraordinary conditions.
So this extension gives them a temporary sigh of relief, but it does not solve the long-term issue of permanent status. It is essentially kicking the can down the road, which keeps these families in a constant state of limbo. What is the administration saying about why they waited until the very last minute?
Officials cited administrative backlogs and the need to carefully review country conditions, but critics argue the delay was purely political. It highlights how volatile immigration policy remains, where a single administrative delay can upend hundreds of thousands of lives overnight.
It really shows how fragile the system is. But speaking of immigration enforcement and federal friction, there is another major story out of Minnesota that is raising a lot of eyebrows. The Department of Homeland Security has deported a Minnesota man despite him receiving a full state pardon.
This is a highly unusual and controversial case. Sarah, the man had a past conviction for sexual abuse, but he received a state pardon that was actually supported by the victim of his past abuse. Despite that pardon and the victim's advocacy on his behalf, federal immigration authorities went ahead with the deportation anyway.
That seems incredibly harsh, especially with the victim supporting the pardon. How does the federal government override a state-level pardon like that?
It comes down to the strict division between state and federal law. While a state governor can pardon a state crime, federal immigration law has its own set of rules regarding what makes someone deportable. The Department of Homeland Security maintains that certain convictions, particularly those involving sexual abuse, carry mandatory deportation consequences under federal law, regardless of state-level forgiveness.
So even if a state completely wipes the slate clean, the federal government can still look at the original offense and say, "We do not care, you have to go." That must create a massive amount of friction between state officials and federal immigration enforcement.
It absolutely does. Minnesota officials are expressing deep frustration, arguing that federal agencies are undermining the state's sovereign right to grant clemency and rehabilitate individuals. It sets a tense precedent for how state pardons are treated by federal authorities moving forward.
A really tough situation that highlights the complex web of our legal system. Coming up, we'll take a look at the global stage, where India is making a major diplomatic push and tensions are boiling over between the U.S. and Iran.
Welcome back. Let's move to global news. India's External Affairs Minister, S. Jaishankar, is set to officially launch India's bid for a non-permanent seat on the United Nations Security Council. This campaign is a major part of India's ongoing diplomatic push to secure a much stronger voice in global governance.
India has been arguing for years that the current structure of the Security Council is outdated and does not reflect the modern geopolitical reality. They want a permanent seat, of course, but securing this non-permanent seat is a crucial stepping stone to show their leadership on the global stage.
It is all about building alliances and showing they could be a stabilizing force. And that ties directly into another major story we are watching, which is India's active deployment of its Indo-Pacific strategy. They are working hard to counter China's geopolitical strategy known as the String of Pearls.
For those unfamiliar, the String of Pearls refers to China's network of military and commercial facilities along its sea lines of communication, stretching from the Chinese mainland all the way to the Horn of Africa. It is essentially an encirclement strategy, and India is feeling the squeeze.
Right. So India is countering this by securing its own critical shipping lanes and building robust regional security alliances. They are strengthening ties with countries like Japan, Australia, and the United States through the Quad, and securing access to strategic ports in the Indian Ocean.
It is a high-stakes game of maritime chess, Alex. The Indian Ocean is home to some of the busiest trade routes in the world, so whoever controls these lanes has immense economic and strategic leverage.
Absolutely. Now, shifting our focus to the Middle East, where geopolitical tensions are escalating rapidly. Donald Trump has issued sharp threats against Iran after chants calling for his death erupted during the funeral of Ayatollah Khamenei.
The funeral of Khamenei was already a highly charged event, but those chants have pushed relations between the United States and Iran to a dangerous new low. Trump wasted no time in responding, warning Iran of severe consequences if any harm comes to American citizens or interests.
This exchange comes at an incredibly volatile time. The U.S. government has just set a strict Saturday deadline for Iran to publicly renounce attacks on commercial shipping in the Strait of Hormuz.
The Strait of Hormuz is one of the world's most critical maritime trade choke points. A huge percentage of the world's oil passes through there, so any disruption has immediate global economic consequences. The U.S. is essentially drawing a line in the sand.
It is an incredibly risky ultimatum. If Iran ignores the deadline, we could see a direct military confrontation or a massive escalation in maritime security operations, which would send oil prices skyrocketing.
We will be watching that deadline very closely as the weekend approaches. When we come back, we will take a look at the latest developments out of India, including a tragic accident in Noida and a controversial new bill in West Bengal.
Turning now to India and Tamil Nadu. Public outrage is growing in Noida after CCTV footage captured the tragic final moments of an engineer who died after falling into an open drain. The incident has sparked intense anger over municipal negligence and hazardous urban infrastructure.
It is absolutely heartbreaking, Alex. A professional walking home, and because of a completely exposed, unmarked drain, a life is cut short. The local community is demanding accountability from municipal officials who have neglected basic safety measures for far too long.
It highlights a massive issue with urban planning and maintenance in many rapidly growing cities. Meanwhile, in West Bengal, the state government has formed a high-level committee to review the draft Uniform Civil Code bill, which aims to replace personal laws based on scriptures and customs with a common set of laws for every citizen.
This is a highly controversial topic across India. Several other states are moving forward with adopting this legal framework, but West Bengal's decision to form a review committee shows they are taking a very cautious approach to ensure it does not spark widespread social unrest.
It is a delicate balance between national legal unity and protecting diverse cultural traditions. And speaking of government control, a federal panel in India has backed a ban on the film Satluj, stating that its content goes against India's sovereignty.
This decision has intensified the debate over state censorship and artistic freedom. The filmmakers argue the ban is an overreach, while the government maintains that national security and sovereignty must take precedence over creative expression.
It is an ongoing battle that we see play out in the creative industry quite often. Let's talk markets now, Sarah. There is some massive news in the digital asset space. Circle has received final approval from the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency to establish a federally supervised national trust bank in the United States.
This is a massive milestone for the crypto industry, Alex. Circle is the issuer of USDC, one of the largest stablecoins in the world. Getting a national trust bank charter means they can now offer regulated digital asset custody directly, which really bridges the gap between traditional finance and crypto.
It gives them a level of legitimacy and regulatory backing that very few in the crypto space have. It means institutional investors who are hesitant to touch digital assets can now do so through a federally supervised entity.
Exactly. It reduces the perceived risk significantly. But while Circle is celebrating, the broader crypto community is facing some regulatory headwinds on Capitol Hill. A bipartisan U.S. housing bill is set to enact a temporary 4-year ban on a government-issued central bank digital currency, or CBDC.
This is a major legislative move that reflects deep political divisions over federal control. Proponents of the ban argue that a digital dollar would give the federal government unprecedented visibility and control over citizens' financial transactions, posing a massive threat to privacy.
On the flip side, supporters of a CBDC argue that the U.S. risks falling behind other global powers, like China, who are already developing their own digital currencies. This 4-year ban essentially halts any progress the Federal Reserve was making on this front.
It is a significant pause, but while the federal government is stepping back, corporate giants are moving forward. Hyundai has become the first major South Korean company to introduce internal stablecoin transfers using the Avalanche blockchain.
This is a really interesting practical application of blockchain technology. Hyundai is using it for live, cross-border stablecoin treasury transfers to manage their international liquidity.
It shows that major corporations are starting to see the efficiency benefits of public blockchains. Instead of waiting days for traditional wire transfers and paying high fees, they can settle transactions almost instantly and securely.
It is a major vote of confidence for the Avalanche network. But speaking of massive financial moves, let's talk about the traditional stock market. South Korean chip giant SK Hynix just raised $26.5 billion in its New York share offering.
That is the largest ever U.S. listing by a foreign firm, Sarah. The demand was absolutely massive, driven almost entirely by investors wanting exposure to suppliers of NVIDIA's artificial intelligence hardware.
SK Hynix makes high-bandwidth memory chips, which are absolutely essential for training complex AI models. Since NVIDIA cannot make their chips without these components, SK Hynix is sitting in an incredibly lucrative position right now.
Investors are clearly betting big on the long-term growth of AI. But as the financial rewards of AI and crypto grow, so do the security threats. We are tracking 2 major security compromises today. First, threat actors compromise the Injective Labs software development kit on GitHub to distribute a malicious package designed to steal cryptocurrency wallet private keys.
This is a classic supply chain attack, Alex. Instead of targeting individual users, the hackers target the tools that developers use to build decentralized finance applications. If a developer unknowingly uses this compromised package, every user who interacts with their app could have their wallet drained.
It is a highly sophisticated attack vector. And we are also seeing another vulnerability called IllBloom being actively exploited, which has already allowed attackers to drain over $5 million from cryptocurrency wallets.
IllBloom targets the way some wallet software generates recovery phrases. If the software uses weak cryptographic randomness, hackers can essentially guess the recovery phrases and gain full access to the funds. It is a stark reminder of how critical robust security standards are in the digital asset space.
Absolutely. Coming up, we will dive into the world of tech and AI, where Apple is taking OpenAI to court, and SpaceX has some massive plans for the future of global internet.
Welcome back. On the tech side, we have some incredibly fascinating research coming out of Anthropic. Their researchers have successfully mapped the internal concepts and hidden states inside their Claude large language model.
This is a huge deal for AI safety and interpretability, Sarah. For the longest time, deep learning models have been treated as a black box. We know what we put in, and we see what comes out, but we did not really understand how the neural network was processing those complex ideas internally.
Right, it was almost like trying to read a human mind by just looking at an MRI scan without knowing what the different regions actually do. By mapping these internal states, Anthropic is giving us unprecedented visibility into how these models think, which makes it much easier to prevent harmful behaviors and bias.
It is a massive step forward. But while Anthropic is focusing on safety, OpenAI is dealing with some major legal trouble. Apple has filed a lawsuit against OpenAI and its chief hardware officer, Tang Tan, alleging the theft of proprietary trade secrets and unreleased product designs.
This is a massive escalation in the Silicon Valley talent and intellectual property war. Apple is accusing former employees of taking highly sensitive hardware designs with them when they jumped ship to join OpenAI.
It highlights just how intense the competition has become as these tech giants scramble to build the next generation of AI-powered hardware. OpenAI is trying to build its own hardware ecosystem, and Apple is clearly drawing a line in the sand to protect its intellectual property.
It is going to be a fascinating legal battle to watch. But OpenAI is also making headlines for a major scientific breakthrough. Their new GPT 5.6 Sol Ultra model has reportedly generated a mathematical proof for the long-standing cycle double cover conjecture.
If this proof holds up to peer review, Sarah, it is a historic milestone. The cycle double cover conjecture has been unsolved in graph theory for decades. Using an AI model to solve a complex, unsolved mathematical theory shows that these systems are moving far beyond just summarizing text and are starting to display genuine reasoning capabilities.
That is truly mind-blowing. Imagine what else we could solve if AI can consistently tackle these deep scientific and mathematical problems. But speaking of massive scale, SpaceX is making some incredibly ambitious moves of its own. They're seeking regulatory approval to launch an additional 100,000 Starlink satellites.
100,000, Sarah. That is a mind-boggling number. They are claiming this expansion will boost global internet bandwidth by 100-fold, allowing them to provide high-speed internet to even the most remote corners of the planet.
While the goal of global connectivity is great, this plan is raising some serious concerns about orbital congestion and space debris. Astronomers are already complaining that the existing Starlink satellites are ruining their view of the night sky, so adding another 100,000 is going to face some intense pushback.
It is a massive debate over who gets to control and populate our low Earth orbit. But SpaceX isn't just focusing on satellites. NASA has selected SpaceX to launch its upcoming space telescope designed to search for habitable exoplanets.
This partnership shows how much NASA has come to rely on commercial rocket capabilities to advance deep space exploration. This telescope could unlock entirely new worlds and bring us closer to answering the question of whether we are alone in the universe.
A truly exciting mission. Before we move on, we have an urgent security update for our listeners. Progress Software has instructed ShareFile customers to immediately shut down their storage zone controllers due to an active external security threat.
If you or your business uses ShareFile, do not ignore this. Shutting down those controllers is crucial to prevent potential data breaches while the company works on a fix.
Definitely take that warning seriously. When we come back, we will wrap things up with sports and culture, including a massive contract extension in the NBA and a historic attendance record in the WNBA.
Welcome back. Let's talk sports. Victor Wembanyama has agreed to a massive 5-year, $252 million contract extension with the San Antonio Spurs.
This is a huge deal, Sarah, but what is really interesting is that he could be leaving up to $50 million on the table, depending on how future salary cap structures play out. Still, securing their cornerstone player is a massive win for the Spurs.
He is a generational talent, so lock him in for as long as you can. Meanwhile, in tennis, Jannik Sinner absolutely demolished Novak Djokovic to secure his spot in the Wimbledon final against Alexander Zverev.
Sinner's performance was absolutely dominant, Sarah. It really feels like we are witnessing a changing of the guard at the top of men's professional tennis as the younger generation starts to consistently beat the legends.
It was an incredible match to watch. And speaking of incredible sports milestones, A matchup featuring Paige Buchers and the Dallas Wings against Tempo has set a brand new WNBA single-game attendance record.
The energy in that arena was electric. It highlights the absolutely surging popularity and commercial growth of women's professional basketball over the last couple of years.
It is amazing to see the sport getting the recognition and the crowds it deserves. Finally, in golf, world number one Scottie Scheffler has missed the cut at a tournament for the first time in 4 years.
That is an unbelievable streak to come to an end, Sarah. For years of absolute consistency at the highest level of golf, it just shows that even the absolute best in the world can have an off week.
It really does. It was a historic run while it lasted.
That is it for our briefing today, where we saw that whether it is in the halls of Congress, the courts of Silicon Valley, or the stadiums of Wimbledon, the boundaries of what is possible are constantly being rewritten.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We will see you tomorrow.
Take care, everyone.